empty hearts and neon lights. They're playing with my mind. Gotta get out of here tonight. Oh, I wanna run off and fly. And I'll tell myself it's fine to be alone, just to find somewhere that finally feels like home. Oh, oh, oh. I hate all this overthinking. Oh, 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 oh. The more I swim, the more I'm sinking. Take me to a world of silver. No more heartbreaks, tears, painkillers. Take me somewhere unfamiliar. Bring me back to where we started out. Get me out of now. To where we started out. Get me out of now. To where we started out. La 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 la, oh, oh. Get me out of broken hearts and starting fights, turning truth to lies. Gotta get up, stop wasting time. Yeah, I wanna run off and fly. And I'll tell myself it's fine to be alone, just to find somewhere that finally feels like home. Oh, oh, oh. I hate all this overthinking. Oh, 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 oh. The more I swim, the more I'm sinking. Take me to a world of silver. No more heartbreaks, tears, pain. rise around like an ocean in my head. I can almost feel you walking in the distance, but I know that it's not reality. If you are echoing around inside these parallel dimensions all alone, know I'll find you in my dreams. I can almost feel you walking in the distance, but I know that it's not reality.
Hello everybody and welcome back to the main action of the World Snooker Tour, and welcome to the Wuhan Open. And after missing out on a couple of rounds, let's hope they're gonna save the best till last, because we're still getting a couple of really high volume players to the last 16 stage. Only Wuhan has so far been the player that has really not managed to deliver up to the expectations and has been eliminated by Artemi Zhizhins in the first round. So it was a good match from Zhizhin's point of view. I think when you look back on it from Wuhan's perspective, he is doing exactly the same thing that Xington has done 12 months ago when he was the reigning world champion himself, when he had a very, very quiet rest of 2025, reaching a couple of semis on his way. One, of course, in Shanghai Masters, which Wuhan, of course, managed to achieve already. And the other one was the International Championship last season, where, of course, Wuhan was able to beat Zhao Xington. But the story today is quite an interesting one, because it is surprising to see in China, on table number one, you know, they could have put Judd Trump against Xi Jiahui. They decided to put Ronnie O'Sullivan against Steve Maguire, which I'm all for it, but is it going to be the match which delivers all the expectations? Because despite not seeing the entirety of the fixtures against Ashley Carty and Yao Pencheng, it just seems like Ronnie's struggling there. I mean, once again, his interviews are about as bad as it gets. He says he can't mentally cope with not hitting the ball well for the fourth consecutive year. He's had breaks of 52, 54, 59 in the first match, 73, 64, and 109 that he finished with Yao Pencheng. So it is getting a little bit better, but I think you also have to consider when he was playing well in Saudi, and he certainly was playing well at the World Open last season, he didn't really start to be performing well until the later part of the tournament. But you have to give credit to his opponent. You know, Maguire didn't really come to the previous match as a favourite up against Artemi Zhizhins, especially when he was up against the player that has beaten the world champion in the first round, especially when he was 4-1 down in a race to 5, but he still managed to come back really, really strongly, and even in the decider, being 59 points down, managed to come back that brilliant 72 points of a clearance, and stolen that one away from Zhizhin. So it's not going to be the first ever match between Artemis and Ronnie O'Sullivan here. It is going to be yet another match in between Maguire and O'Sullivan. But the interesting thing is, despite Ronnie not playing particularly well, he still hasn't lost to Maguire in the last 15 years. So you're going to have to go all the way back to 2011 for you to see the last time where Maguire has managed to beat O'Sullivan in a ranking match of any sort, or even a competitive match on the World Snooker Tour. There's going to be plenty of respect in between the two players, as now the little fist bump is in and he will be running to break off to get us underway. So hopefully for himself, he just needs to try and settle into the game early. I think that problem that he had not having, well, that's not really the way that he wants to try and settle into the match, catching the blue full ball off the break off and straight away just leaves that invitation open to Maguire. But yeah, I think with Steven, it's going to be a little bit different this time around, because you're going to have to realise, you know, when you talk about someone like Maguire, he's not really going to be allowing you to be making those mistakes, although he has done on this occasion. You know, the red was cuttable into the corner and he didn't really manage to make that one to go past the jaw, which I still think are fairly generous for the UK format, but at the same time, I think they've been pretty decent when it comes down to the standard of play in China. So Ronnie just carefully cuts the red in towards the right corner after Maguire wasn't able to take his invitation, and yeah, he sort of landed a little bit in between here. He may be able to do something from the yellow though. I don't think he's going to have to try and make it on the blue, which is going to be closer towards the ball cushion after the first shot has seen contact in between the white and the blue itself. So just careful little side spin and play that shot really well, to be fair, you have to say, because now all of a sudden he got a journey towards the red with a straight line, which will allow the cue ball to be positioning itself nicely for the black to be taken into the left part of the table. So just needs to try and keep it steady. And as I say, there's 2 points that you're going to have to try and mention here. First of all, he needs to try and keep it simple. Things that he was doing, you know, in a pretty bad manner were in China Open were very much down to him trying to play the hard shot first, which, you know, when you're struggling for form, it's a bit of a questionable thing for you to try and achieve. But on here, it does seem like he's going to have to try and do something with those three reds. Right above the black, all being in a straight line underneath the main pack of the red. So he's thinking about just trying to leave the cue ball lined up onto one of them to be taken into the right middle, as he's now getting himself set up for the black to be taken once again from the right part of the table. He needs to try and play the cue ball across a little bit more, just because that if he does miss out on a red, which he hasn't, he's played that red really well, he still should have covered all the potential opportunities for Maguire to be going for the red into the left corner. But yeah, I mean, last season the pair have met only once. It was in the last 32 of the Xi'an Grand Prix, and O'Sullivan was actually blistering in that match, and in a good manner actually, because he was absolutely on fire, on form, and Maguire, to be fair, was playing pretty poorly, and he was a straightforward win in the same format to first to five, and he was able to win that match 5-0. And yeah, as I say, I mean, when it comes down to his performance against Carty and against Yao yesterday, I think, you know, there's plenty of things to improve on, but his scoring hasn't been horrible. You know, it does take a couple of opportunities to get himself into that position, but, you know, at the same time, you have to probably anticipate that at this stage. He's not 21 anymore, and, you know, we've seen Williams to be able to overcome his own struggles against David Gilbert. Of course, Higgins is not going to be playing, so the benchmark of the two of them is still going to be there to a certain extent with Williams. But when it comes down to the top players, of course, I don't think Ronnie would care about that one bit, but he's got 100,000 worth of ranking points to try and defend, as he now misses out on the black there, so completely out of nowhere. Let's see what sort of chances he left for Maguire here, though, because, you know, underhitting the black and undercutting the black has meant the cue ball hasn't travelled so far to the right as he should have, or probably was the intention there for O'Sullivan. So I only see two options here for Maguire, and neither one of those two is easy by any stretch of imagination, because you've got a shot along the black or cushion to be taken. But, you know, they'll tell you how generous the pockets are and how well Maguire's going to be feeling about himself, because this is not a nice shot to be taking on at all, and he's just about got that one in. I think that was reasonable for the red to drop, although it was slightly marginal as well. Now the question is, what sort of colour does Maguire have next to his name here? Because he's on the blue, which reminds you of the first shot that O'Sullivan has played, being on the blue, but also being better on the yellow in comparison to what Maguire has got in front of him now. And yeah, just a little shake of the head, which usually means prepares for something a little bit reckless and a little bit aggressive. He's going to try and take the black away now, which is not perfectly into the corner pocket, but he's going to have to try and play that one well. He did, but the question is that going to be good enough for him to try and get on the red? The short and sweet of it is probably going to be yes, because he is on the red to the yellow pocket or towards the left middle, but at the same time, I just think it's not going to be an easy way for him to try and get on the black, which he needs to be perfectly lined up for. Otherwise, as he now completely mishits the red, so unless he's going to try and fluke that one into the corner, he gets a little bit lucky not to leave that red available after a double kiss with a cue ball, but I think both parties are going to be content with it, to be fair, because I think Ronnie is going to be pretty surprised not to see himself to be behind after this break from Maguire, and still having a 20 points of a lead is going to be a nice little thing for him to try and achieve. And I think, of course, he's not really trying to play well. Of course, he is always to try and achieve that, but more realistic target is going to be trying for him to win and try and play better. Once again, down to the striking of the ball, but also down to the cue ball positioning not being the worst attribute, but I think the pot success has been a lot more of an issue for O'Sullivan so far. But, of course, the easier you make it for yourself when it comes down to the positional players. Maguire there goes for a brilliant long raid in towards the right corner. Now then, what can he try and achieve with a second attempt? Because he's still got plenty of issues there, but he's got a red to play for in between the pink and the black. Just needs to try and take that red away after going for the blue along the ball cushion. Played that shot really well, you have to say. Now that gives himself a little bit of freedom to try and work his way around this shot, because if he can just try and carefully take the red away towards the left corner, play that cue ball to be lined up with the black. I mean, he is top side of it. I felt like he could have been a little bit further up the table there, but this will have to do. If he plays the shot nicely, the reds are in a position where they should bounce away from each other quite well as well. And then you're going to have to start talking about the actual points, but he completely mishit and he completely missed the contact point that he was looking for. And I said the 5 reds were going to spread out quite nicely. Well, not if you catch the loose one on the right. And in the end, it's still going to be a pack of 4 reds. And the one that he's cannoned into has gone beyond his point of reach and away from the blue. So I think he's being Stephen Maguire. I think he's going to try and cut the red along the side cushion. But, you know, he's gone for a couple of those shots before. Didn't really work out. This one is not going to be an exception. So the question is, has he left that red over the corner? And if he hasn't, does the red go past the green and into the green pocket as well? So at the end, you're going to have breaks of 6 and 8. 6 and 14, I should say, for Stephen Maguire. As he now sees Ronnie to try and take charge of the table. Once again, despite him only getting 1 chance beforehand, he's still going to find himself in the lead, and now getting the second opportunity to try and clean sweep 2 reds with reasonable colours. And I think after the second one, he's going to have to try and position himself nicely onto the blue. Top side preferably. Depends on what he wants to try and do with that loose red, which of course he wouldn't need at this stage, so I don't think he's going to have any need to try and rush that one in. Just needs to try and do something that he's been so good over the last 30 years or so. Do you think Ronnie has a realistic chance of winning the tourney if he advances to the quarterfinals? Yeah, but once again, I think with Ronnie, it's a good shot there. Surprised to see him take the power away completely from the cue ball, but, you know, he's had 4 reds, very closely congested to each other, and now he's got 3 of them. One that has gone into the open play. Once again, trying to get into that rhythm. About a couple of seconds taken in between those shots. Very thin contact on the reds though. But he's still in with a chance. He's got a good shot ahead of him. And then he's going to be very much down to the finish line of the frame. But yeah, I think I'm still massively thinking about, you know, the statement from Hendrick. Just have a look at this red though, because it could well be the frame ball. And if it is, then the frame should be done and dusted there. It's a really good shot there from O'Sullivan. Never easy there, Mar. When you're not striking the cue ball, as he says, exactly where you want it. And yeah, taking the pace away from those type of shots is a killer, because it's really easy for you to drift the red towards one side of the jaw or the other. But in the end, I have to say, it's not a lot that he's done today, but he hasn't done a lot wrong, apart from missing the black off the spot. And this break, even though, he can't really put it down to being simple, because he had 2 reds available to him. He had to make 2 contact points in towards the black. As Ronnie there just has a little look at the referee as if he called something on him. But in the end, it will be a frame to Ronnie O'Sullivan. Yeah, but very quickly on Ronnie to win the tournament. I don't see it, simply because from what I've seen from Ronnie, from what I heard from Ronnie, it's simply not been good enough. But you have to say, with Weezer being eliminated in the first round, it has given him a path towards the quarterfinal. And no disrespect to Maguire there, but he's someone like Weezer, someone like Mark Selby, which O'Sullivan could still face in the quarterfinals. But I think if he gets himself into a 3-match winning streak, and by the way, it's been a while since he played 3 tournaments in a row, which he has done now. Shanghai Masters, China Open, and now Wuhan Open. I think it'll be a while since we've seen him back on the tour, because with all the respect, as he now plays a really good shot on the yellow, that makes it a break of 50 plus there for himself. So very quickly to answer the question, no, I don't think he'll win a ranking tournament, but logically, the closer he gets, the better his chances are going to be. So I think with Selby and Pan Jiangsu, if you put it past Maguire, which is still a long shot at this stage, because even though he's going to take a 1-0 lead and he's actually played really well, once again, a simple mistake of the black was the only problem that he had. And of course, the break-off shot wasn't perfect. But, apart from that, he's managed to redeem himself, play a really good break, you have to say. And now about to finish off with a break of 75 points. Second highest break of the tournament for him. And he comes at the first frame. Once again, a really nice performance there from Ronnie. So we'll see if he's going to be able to try and keep it up there. Ronnie, keep it up. Ronnie O'Sullivan is the greatest all-time snooker player. Well, the only player that can sort of argue with that is going to be Stephen Henshaw, and I don't think he's got any intention of doing that. So yeah, I think for me, he once again, he comes back to Henshaw. He's saying that Ronnie will win a ranking tournament this season. Well, I still think there are a lot of top seeds very much left in this tournament, so I don't think it's a likely thing to happen. You've got Trump, you've got Xington, which both seem to be playing superbly well against the lower ranked opposition players. You've got Selby, that just managed to win a tournament that he may well have to face in the next round. You've got the likes of, Williams. You've got the likes of Robertson still being in there. You've got a couple of Chinese players. Si Jiahui, if he does manage to put it behind Trump, then, you wouldn't really count him out just yet of that particular equation. But you still think Ronnie's just going to have to try and take this one match at a time. I think the biggest hope for him is going to have to be down to, if he plays well, nothing will stop him. He generally doesn't miss any tournaments in China, so I'm sure he will play in all of them, even if they were back-to-back, but deep down he will enjoy winning in big event. Yeah, so I think, I think he does miss the tournaments when he didn't miss the Wuhan Open last season, but that was down to him almost winning Saudi, coming 1 frame away from Neil Robertson. But also one thing I didn't finish because he missed the black at that stage. He needs to, well, not for himself, but for the fans' point of view. He's got a couple of ranking points to try and defend there based off Saudi. He's going to have 200,000 disappearing next season. And he's got 50,000 disappearing this season. So because he's already in the 4th round there, if you count the qualifiers, which I don't think you should, because he only played 2 matches, so there should be a 3rd round for him. As Maguire there was very keen to try and get himself towards the table, but the referee says no. So we're going to have to wait for the procedure, and Maguire must have been blown away by how quickly that break from O'Sullivan went. And 18 minutes later, and we already have got a frame on the board. But if you think that's quick, think again, because Si Jiahui has already lost a frame to Judd Trump, and Ali Carter has already lost a frame and a half away to Chang Minyu, because Chang now finds himself 37 points clear as well. So Mark Selby is for now losing to Pan Jiangsu by 34 to 3 points. But still, I mean, I'm surprised to see how dominant the odds are for Mark Selby. as we now see the break-off shot from Maguire. It is certainly better than what we've seen away from Ronnie, because the cue ball does actually make it to the top end of the table. And I think, of course, he would enjoy winning the event. I think, once again, at this stage, him having those conversations about him struggling, he's now seemingly going to have to go for a long shot, needs to be careful with the cue ball. And he wasn't really too careful with the cue ball. I think he was focused on just trying to get the red in, but I think he managed to get away with that to a certain extent. It's a very awkward shot that he's left for Maguire. Into the left corner. Close to the cushion with the red. Even closer to the cushion with the cue ball on the side rail this time. So it's not an easy one for you to try and play. Hello mate, good to see you again. I hope you're doing well. Thank you very much. Thanks him likewise for you as well. But yeah, I think Maguire just didn't really fancy his chances there. I mean, as much as he's aggressive there, he does have plenty of brain cells in himself, and I don't think he realised that, playing that red with topspin would have got you straight into the reds. I don't think there was any value in taking that shot on, especially since, the shots that he played in the first two frames could have easily seen as now, could it be a treble there from Ronnie? He's going to put his hand of apology there because he didn't really mean to play that shot. I think he was trying to play for a cross double, and certainly the hand was there. The eye roll was there as well, but you have to say, when you're not playing well, and from his point of view, certainly, you're going to have to try and take whatever goes your way, as he now just tries to squeeze that yellow with the body of him. Just trying to make sure that he uses all the powers available to him to get that yellow into the pocket. Ronnie and Steven can both get quite arrogant and frustrated at times, so this will be an interesting match in terms of composure. Yeah, but I think it's probably a good thing, to be fair, for someone like Ronnie, because once again, I think it's a very bad shot there. I don't know what happened there. It was a shot from the rest, but I think that's going to be break over from nowhere. I mean, it's not like he had a brilliant position ahead of him, but he still had a couple of more reds to be taken. Has a little glance towards the ping, but doesn't seem like it. But yeah, very quickly on that mindset, I think you're never going to see both players to be super frustrated with themselves, because one of them, even if they're not playing well, both of them, then one of them will have to say, well, I'm playing better. I may not be playing to my usual standards, but I'm still playing better and being a better player than the guy sitting opposite me. So I don't think we're going to see cues smashed, bumps on the table, absolute angry faces, swear words exchanged. I don't think that's going to happen there. I think there's a tremendous amount of respect in between the two of them because of how long they shared these pieces of equipment for. And also, I think they're probably past that stage, to be fair. It's not like it's going to be, the semi-final appearance, certainly for Ronnie there, although that was anything but comfortable, as he just about manages to avoid the double kiss. Still, nowhere near the position where the cue ball should have been in relation to the bulk line, but I think he's managed to get away with that one. And a bit of a frustrating start for Maguire, though, which is not something that he wants. The two chances that he had in the previous frame didn't really work out too well for him, with breaks of 8 and 14. I mean, whatever you say about stages for Ronnie, and they have been dreadful so far, as Maguire plays a really good one of himself, nearly getting the cue ball right in behind the brown. But yeah, I mean, the scoring hasn't been bad for Ronnie, because it's been, 3 chances you could say, but, certainly the first two were a lot better than the third one, as now a really good safety shot that Ronnie has found. And let's see if Steven can just about see those reds on the left-hand side of the edge. It all depends on how Ronnie's mindset is on that particular day, because when he's general game, miles away from what I noticed is that he didn't just persevere through to win. He has to go his way. Yeah, absolutely agree. And that's why I think he's not got a chance of winning a ranking tournament, since Maguire misses out on making the contact with the reds. And I think Ronnie's not going to have any real need to be taking that red in towards the right corner. Mid-range shot through the side cushion. Absolutely no. It should be common sense for him to try and put Maguire back into the original position, and it's exactly what he's done. But yeah, I think it's a really good point there, because for me, for Ronnie to win a ranking tournament, he needs to see the pieces fall into place for him, which are 5 or 6 variables. I think the first one he needs a very easy start to the draw. He needs to be calm enough so that he's going to be happy to be composed and focused, as now Maguire does put himself on the back foot. Let's see if he leaves a free ball away. No, he won't. But he does miss out on the contact points once again, so he will be down to the yellow to be respotted there. But more importantly, you can see the red's full ball, so he's going to have to hit a red now. And it's not an easy mission for you to try and achieve, because of course if he doesn't hit it this time around, he will be a frame to his opponent. So we'll see what's going to happen now with Maguire, because he needs to try and do something different. Is he going to be hitting hope? We'll have to wait and see. I think if he goes for the red, closer to the cue ball, I think he's got a chance. Well, that was risky, He still went for the same red. He's giving himself a lot more freedom. But when I say a lot more freedom, it wasn't actually a lot of an opportunity for him to try and take it away. Is this the 3-0 misrule in action? Well, it was, but Maguire just seemed like he didn't really get a warning from the referee. And I'm actually not sure he did, which is a little bit weird, but because I'm pretty sure he could see that red on the right-hand side. But once again, the way that he played it, to me, there was no way that, it was going to be after a warning. And also, I think I'm a little bit surprised that his body language, if you look at the way after he missed that second time, missed the contact point on the red the second time there, he sort of pulled his head into his arms there, saying, oh my God, what have I done? I need to hit it now. And when you need to hit it, you usually just have to take it, complete focus away from safety and just focus on hitting the red itself. So, a little bit surprised there, but hasn't really changed the game too much. O'Sullivan getting a little bit lucky, and the cue ball is going to position himself all the way towards the yellow pocket. Maguire having to, or being forced actually, to try and roll the cue ball towards the reds. It's a one-way traffic this, but Stephen clearly thought that was the best thing that he could achieve, and we'll have to see what happens. But I think, with Ronnie, I think the biggest issue, and once again, more variables, is that he's going to need to make sure the top seeds that he was due to meet in the second or third rounds are all going to be eliminated, which is what happened to Weezer. And then, when we get towards a quarter-final stage, which he's not in just yet, but he's not too far away from it, I think you need to have an opposition player, which is not an easy one. I mean, you can't expect a quarter-final to be easy for you, but at the same time, I don't think you can play someone like Jock Trump, because you would lose. There's Maguire there with a bit of a negative walk away from the table, so let's see if that's given a chance away to Ronnie, but I don't really think he's going to be interested into taking anything risky now, as he's just seemingly looking to try and take that top area of the table. Well, he's tried to play the reds towards the yellow pocket. He could actually see that gap past the blue. It didn't really work out, but the question is how far away the red is from the pocket from Maguire, but also how much of it can he see past the blue. At the end of the day, in Ronnie's interview yesterday, he's fully aware of everyone criticising his current form of being nowhere near as good for the past 4 years. But I think he's been his biggest critic himself. He wants that dominant feeling again, but much harder considering his age. And once again, I agree with that, because if you think about what he's done beforehand and the way that he's done it, you wouldn't really expect him to be like that even at 50 years of age, because there are going to be points he can't really fight there, and for him to be missing out on those tournaments, it could be a bit of a closed circle there, because what he's saying is that he's got to manage his health. For him to manage his health, he needs to miss tournaments. For him to be playing well, he needs to play tournaments. Because I think half of those mistakes that he's making would have happened if he was playing more snooker. But the question is, can he physically play more snooker? Or is it just down to, I don't see a point in travelling for the British Open because I don't live in there? And, you never know the answer to that one, but I still think there is a variable and a half there to say that it's not just down to him managing his health, because, as I say, I think you've got, to a certain extent, I know they're struggling right now, but Williams and Higgins don't really have the same sort of issue with themselves, but really they're just trying to hold the cue ball perfectly intact towards the black ball cushion. But This was the shot to try and put pressure on Maguire. Really managed to achieve that. And let's have a look. But as I said before, he needs to entertain me. He has to go his way, especially when he won the inaugural Snooker 100 event and defeated Lugo. Really enjoyed it. Even the World Seniors, yeah, but I think it's a little bit of a different level there. Not with respect to Snooker 900, but if you've seen the pockets and you've seen the format that the cue ball runs, I don't think he's got anything to do with the Pro Tour, but after a very lengthy safety battle, as I said, the previous shot was the time for Ronnie to try and put pressure on Maguire. He's done that well, and he's done really, really well, and even better when it comes down to the introduction shot that he had after a mistake from Steven. Now, he's got a prime practice table ahead of him here. He would feel so many reds available, 20 points of the advantage already to his name. So after a very lengthy safety battle, let's try to get to something a lot more enjoyable for him, although still not being comfortable on the cue ball. A little bit too, well, a lot too close to the side cushion. Yeah, but you can see there is an element of flair to it. So I think he's playing better than how he was playing actually at the China Open. But he never can just count that odd mistake out completely. But yeah, purely from the way that he strikes the ball on the eye, it just seems a lot better because he's making those shots into the heart of the pocket a lot more frequently. But at the same time, it just seems like he's got positional play to be sorted out throughout the entirety of those breaks, which is another great addition to yourself. As he's now looking to try and go for the black to be taken in towards the right corner, just carefully rolls that one in and making sure he's still got plenty of points to try and achieve here, as the referee getting in the way. Probably the only thing that has got in the way of him so far of this particular break. But 32 points is not a bad result. Story for sure. He's a crowd pleaser rooting for him. Well, not just here. You have to say there's going to be plenty of people here that are going to be looking forward to be seeing Ronnie O'Sullivan. And I suppose that does sort of answer your question, my own question actually, of why do you have Ronnie O'Sullivan against Steve Maguire in China, rather than having a Si Jiahui, which is a Chinese player, against the world number one of Judd Trump. Well, because he won't really make you the arena to be as nicely lined up for the fans as Ronnie will do. As he's now blistering away once again. When he finds his pace, when he finds his gear, it's difficult to stop him, especially when, you know, he created that room and created that pocket of space for himself, you have to say, because it was a fair and square battle. And I think it was down to his shot wasn't perfect. The last safety that he played so far of the match wasn't perfect. But the shot that Maguire played next, it was always going to be difficult. And clearly, Ronnie made it difficult enough of a life for Maguire not to be able to get away from that. As he's now looking to put himself 63 points behind. Messi of snooker, well, he's going to be the Ronaldo of snooker then. Here's the question. If Ronnie plays slowly and steady, he will get 5-0. Yeah, I think it's been surprising, to be fair, because no points for Maguire in this frame, as he's now 54 points of a break. Even a Ronnie not playing his best, it still says a lot. Yes, Kevin, absolutely. But listen, I think he's been a little bit disappointed from Maguire's point of view, but that was weird. That was a little bit out of order, as Ronnie was taking the red along the side cushion. It is a break of 54 points, but could have easily extended towards the 70 points of the mark. And now he's going to be 66 points clear, 67 at the table. Absolutely no chance of winning the frame realistically, but mathematically there's always a way, especially since his clearance against Zhizhens, where he was 59 down, managed to find 72 out of 72 left. Out of 75, I should say. And yeah, but the reason why I say he's got no chance is that because he's got 5 reds, he needs to play all of them with the black. 1 for the pink if he's happy to go for a respot. He's got 2 reds to be out of position. 2 more reds to be compromised by the pink. Yellow to be out of position as well, and onto the side rail. And all Ronnie needs is a single point, and he's 2 singles clear. So yeah, he probably would be down to, you know, an example of a clearance from Maguire, but we've seen that before from him. I think it's just probably a matter of time until he goes for one of those long shots into the corner, tries to play for the black. And I think for now, he decided to try and take that cue ball, towards the left corner and bringing one of those reds on the side cushion into the open play there. It's a good tactic for you to achieve, but it's a difficult one for you to try and not to give the open play away to O'Sullivan, because I think Ronnie will realise that what Maguire is doing, and I think he's going to try and compromise the Reds' position, although I think he's trying to go for the red on that particular occasion. Didn't work out. Now the red is going to be quite close towards the right corner. So then, I also noticed the conditions of Snooker 900, like you said, but that was the same for all of them. My point was the desire to win a trophy, as people say that he no longer deserves to win. I agree, but I always think, just because the conditions are the same, doesn't mean that the players are going to do the same way, because that's exactly, that explains perfectly well for me why China Open is probably, there was a lot of hype to it, and Maguire there, not going to have a lot of hype to himself. I think he's about to concede the frame. He's missed the black of the spot. The reds are going to be bouncing, but for the good reasons, as Maguire is trying to help out the referee. And the ref seems to be a little bit surprised that Maguire has conceded, but the damage was done quite early days there, and O'Sullivan is going to win that frame away to himself. But yeah, desire is never questionable, but I think Ronnie, especially with him being one of the ambassadors of the Snooker 900, he's always going to be interested in trying to do that well in his own show, if you like. But I think at the same time, it would also be down to an opportunity to come his way. And then if he does see a chance like that, then you can see, the pockets are genuinely a lot tighter here. And that was the thing that I said about China Open. You make the pockets to be wide, all of a sudden you're going to see, no disrespect to any of those players, by the way, but you're going to see the likes of Yao Pen Cheng, David Gilbert, you're going to see Naphon Senkam, all these players to be doing a lot better than they would have under normal conditions. And, what happened to those players? Yes, Senkam didn't even manage to make his way through qualifiers, but Gilbert has lost to Williams. And, of course, Yao Pen Cheng has lost out to Ronnie O'Sullivan. So we're not really going to see so many upsets of the top 16. And when you think about the upsets of the top 16, we've seen Murphy lose to Pang Junsu, where, it's incredible, actually, how Pang was 4-0 up on the match ball on the black. He takes the black away. He's the winner of the match for a second. Somehow, from the tightest of angles, the cue ball finds its way to the right middle. Incredible out there, and Murphy managed to win 3 frames. So that was a little bit of, heart in mouth moments for Pang, or rather say a sequence of frames. But yeah, Murphy, Weezer, which is still, the thing about Weezer is that you just don't know what's going to happen. You feel like he turns up in an amateur event, he could get beaten tomorrow. But at the same time, he turns up in the World Championship and he's still going to be the favourite. I don't know how it works, but consistently inconsistent, unfortunately, which is a horrible thing for you to have as a fan. But I suppose, at his peak, when he's playing well, brilliant. When he's not playing well, it just seems like he never has got the answer. And we'll see what's going to happen in the next couple of tournaments. But China 2 net has been absolutely horrific for him, because second round loss for China Open, second round loss of the main draw of the Wuhan Open as well. Yes, he did get himself through to the Shanghai Masters, but he could have easily been the world number 1, and he managed to get far in at least one of those tournaments. Instead, it's now going to be the world number 3, which is still up there, because Trump is going to lose $500,000 worth of points for Saudi, but at the same time, it would be very difficult for him to try and get himself and jump over the likes of Xiao Xingtong and Neil Robertson, which for the first time in ages, if ever there's been a chance like that. Well, once again, plenty of power on the cue ball. We're going to see a player from China to be the world number 1, unless Robertson is going to see Xingtong to be eliminated quite early days, which means today, probably. And Robertson himself is going to be able to go very far in Wuhan. For now, Maguire tried to go far into the corner. He didn't make that shot stick. Now he needs cover from the blue or the green. He's going to get cover on the green though, because Ronnie's going to have to bridge very awkwardly over the green to try and pot the red. So let's see how close can he get towards the target. This red usually is an unmissable one, and that was very much the case. He needs the cue ball to be opened up a little bit wider, and it's not a bad job that he's done, considering how tight it was for him, the fact that he's on the blue with any chance of trying to pot it, and I say it's a really good chance as well. I haven't seen those shots to be missed too many times. They can be missed, and they have been missed, but I think it's probably a trademark shot for Ronnie to try and get himself out of trouble. So that one is played nicely. He's still seemingly on the red. We're still young compared with Zhao Xington. I agree, but the comparison between themselves is 2 points, both from China, both playing and both being world champions. So as I say, I think the campaign that Weiss is having is exactly, and I mean exactly the same as what Xington had last season, but Xington is a very different player to Weiser, and that's why I think, even though he still was very much down to inconsistent play from his own sake, but you feel like it was down to circumstances for Xington. You think about that match against Team Maguire in the Wuhan Open, where somehow he didn't manage to win it because of all of it going wrong then, despite having a 45 points of a gap with 51 at the table. He didn't manage to get out of a snooker, which was a fluke. And then Maguire won that match away from Zhao Xington. I agree with Wei's inconsistency with his form. I think his main problem is cue ball control. Yeah, I agree. At the World Championship, he heavily relied on mid or long range pressure pots. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's down to his style. I think it's down to who he is. And I think it's down to the way that he plays the game. But you just feel like with Weiser, is he going to be the next Luca Brissell? Because I think he is Luca Brissell on steroids. I think he is genuinely a better version of Brissell. And does a better version of Brissell actually work in this format of the tour? As Ronnie there, once again, you can feel he's starting to get somewhere. I know he's probably not going to be represented with points that he's scoring, but you genuinely just sense there is a little bit of a shift in momentum in comparison to the previous 2 matches that he's played. And he's playing really well some of his shots. Watch him miss out on the next one. And as I say that, he has missed out on the next one. Unless he's got a shot into the middle. But, I mean, running himself out of position is always better for me than running yourself into a shot where you just wasn't able to take that. And really close into trying to cut the red in towards the right middle, which would have put him right back in the mix for the frame. But in the end, it is going to be yet another time where it's 29 points. 4 on your Sullivan. Now Maguire desperately needs a response here. He's going for the red into the yellow pocket. He needs to make that one stick, and he can't. Yeah, that's unfortunately for Steven. It just happens way too often, and it happens way too often when he comes down to playing against Ronnie. He just doesn't seem like, when his opponent's playing well, just doesn't seem like he can get any sort of real rhythm of himself, as Ronnie there just barely gets the red in. Compromised himself on the ball colours, but still got himself far down to be lined up for the green, to be taken away. The more Ronnie plays, the better his form will improve. Absolutely, Kevin, because as I say, I think half of the mistakes that he's making wouldn't be there if he was playing those matches. But, I mean, once again, you can't really blame it down on this particular season, but you will in the future, because this is probably the last time we'll see Ronnie in a month. He's got no chance of playing in English Open because he already withdrew from it, and I think he's got about as much of a chance in playing the British Open. You know, to go from China to Cheltenham, I mean, no thank you. I think he's going to be the answer, which means he's not really going to be in the action for September at all, because you're not going to force him to play qualifiers. I think, you know, he said it himself there, he ain't going to play qualifiers for the World Championship. So I think the second you ask Ronnie to be turning up for a 1 day off in Leicester or, I don't know, in York for a qualifier match, I think that's when he's going to just say, nah, you know what? I've had enough. Let's go for China 8-ball pool. But yeah, he's certainly enjoying himself a lot better. I know he's still making an odd mistake there, but I have to say, if he just keeps it down to 1 mistake per frame, I think he can be pretty happy with that one, to be fair. And that's what he's done so far. 1 mistake in the first frame, 1 reasonable mistake in the first frame, if you forget about the break off. And then just a single mistake, which, you know, you'll still a half-hearted mistake because it was a brilliant shot that he was trying to go for, and he got about as close as he could have into making that red in. Ronnie's playing next week, still not pulled out yet now, and sorry Kevin, but he ain't going to be playing. I don't think he's played at the British Open for the last 3 years, and tell me the last time he played in the UK, apart from the UK Championship. Nah, he's got no chance of playing. Even if he could have, the thing about Ronnie, I think, if he lost in the first round, he wouldn't play. If he lost in the final, he wouldn't play. If he wins the tournament, he wouldn't play. I mean, I'd be very glad to be wrong, because I'm not a fan of that blind draw for the British Open. So I think getting a player like Ronnie to be in there would always make me twice, if not 3 times more interested. But I think there's genuinely more chance of Ronnie winning this tournament than there is going to be of him turning up for the British Open, because he just never does it. All the tournaments that he's played last season were China. He played German Masters in Germany, breaking news, and he's had the UK Championship, which, I mean, both German Masters and the UK Championship, he lost in the first round in the UK to Long, and then he lost in the second round, I think, or third, to Ali Carter. So he's playing well now, but he's going to have to try and be a little bit better than that if he wants to try and challenge Pine Dring Su or Mark Selby in the next round. But for now, Maguire just doesn't seem like he's got the answer. And Ronnie is still potentially on a roll for a second century of the tournament. He's 1,336, if my maths is correct. All done, running third game. Luca Brissell on steroids. Yeah, I mean, once again, as I say, is Weezer just a better version of Luca Brissell? To me, he is. If you're being very honest with yourself, tell me something that Weezer has that Brissell didn't have in his prime. And yes, you could argue Brissell's prime lasted for 6 months. Well, I haven't really seen a lot of Weezer, have we? When you think about last season, he's had brilliant peaks at the International Championship when he played about as well as anyone. Destroyed Zington, destroyed Trump at the end, beat Higgins. Played brilliantly at the Crucible in moments. But apart from that, he hasn't really done much, has he? And this season, alright, he's got himself through to the first 2 rounds of the Shanghai, but yeah, he's still going to be who actually cares about snooker. Yeah, I think that's a fair point. I think it's a fair point. But, I mean, once again, I'm not really talking about it on a personal point of view or a human point of view as well. I think I'm talking about the style of play. And I think for me, the style of play is probably going to be down to his opportunity to try and get himself into that rhythm of just playing well. Is not really going to be good enough for someone like Zhao Xington. You need to be making sure you've got more to your game. As Ronnie there manages to make it down to a break of 106 points, the cue ball will stay at the table, and Maguire will have to stay at his seat for yet another frame with not scoring any points. But yeah, I mean, when it comes down to the way that he treats snooker, I think there is no doubt. You know, Brissell commenting that he's been playing FIFA till 3 o'clock in the morning, and you see we're easy to be putting in the practice hours in. Absolutely. But when it comes down to the way that he plays the game, I think there are very few circumstances. And as I say, I mean, when I say he's a better version of Brissell, he's a better version than Brissell by a mile. His long shots are better. His ability to get himself out of trouble is a lot better as well. His cue ball control is probably slightly better as well, although it wasn't really the huge advantage for either Brissell or himself. And yeah, I think his safeties are better because Brissell didn't really have any on himself. And his IQ of shot selection is also better. But I think when you talk about the long shots, when you think about the pot success, that's going to be compensating for him not having a brilliant cue ball control. In the Luca Brissell speak, he plays the most outrageous exhibition shots, especially against Ding Jiuwei, where he won 11 frames in a row. I don't think that's possible in the 2025 Snooker World Championship, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, it is technically possible, but I'm pretty sure in 2025, Luca lost to Trump in the quarterfinals. So the only way for him to win 11 frames against Ding would have been in the second round. But, I mean, I know Ding is struggling. And by the way, talk about Ding. you feel like with his form, he ain't going to be far from retirement, he is. You can blame Ronnie all you want, but what happened to Ding? First round loss in Shanghai, first round loss in China Open, first round loss in Wuhan. 3 completely different players, 3 completely different levels of the game as well. And he's lost all 3 of them. I mean, no disrespect, but the fact that he loses to Liam Davis, in the fact that he has done, sorry, but that might be the end of an era there for Ding. It's been coming for a couple of years, but I think it's a massive low there that Ding has hit. And unless he finds any good form, it's not only that we'll see him out of the top 16, which I'm still a little bit baffled that he's in there for now, which shows you how many ranking points he's got to defend to the end of the season. Ding been on slide for a while, yeah, but I don't really remember. I mean, I know he's been struggling, and I know he probably hasn't reached semis for a while, probably last season actually. I don't think I remember him being in a semi-final at all. I remember him being in a quarter-final. I can't remember which tournament. Might have been the UK or the German Masters, but I can't remember, to be fair. But yeah, I mean, for him to lose 3 first-round matches in a row, especially, I mean, once again, not to take any credit away from them, but he lost to Gilbert 5-1, he lost to Davies 5-1, and he lost to, I can't remember who he lost to in the first round. I think he lost to Zhao, which is a reasonable loss for you to have. But yeah, I mean, with 3 matches that he's played, he's taken 2 frames away from Zhao, and he's taken 1 frame away from each of the, you know, Gilbert and Davis, which is baffling there, but not quite as baffling as, you know, where has that form for Maguire has gone there. His brilliant comeback from being 4-1 down against Zhizhens. It just seems like he's being a nice little wingman there to Ronnie, because he's just feeding him with those chances. And I'll tell you what, Ronnie's a really good eater today, because he hasn't wasted too many of them. And now, yet another good shot on the red. Brilliant cue ball control, being perfectly lined up for the black. And after a century break in the previous frame, you just feel like he's slowly, and I'm going to emphasize, he's slowly, but he's getting there. You know, 2 centuries in the last 4 frames that he's played. And now, getting himself yet another chance. And remember, Maguire hasn't scored any points since frame number 1. So it's certainly been a while. Yeah, struggling with cue action. Yeah, honestly, I feel sorry for Ding due to his cue motion not being as fluent as before. Yeah, I think with Ding, it's an issue which seemed to have got worse as Ronnie there just being a little bit lazy, taking that shot for granted. Might have cost him there, you know, because he's nowhere near where he should be on the block. So once again, maybe just down to same old issue there. Once again, showing the cue ball, the hand was sliding, but well, I'll tell you what, it didn't need to be anywhere near as far away as you were. And that was down to not being, you know, able to take a second away. I know they don't like to be playing shots with the rest, but the bottom line was that was the reason why he didn't make it. And Maguire there, making a double into the right middle nicely. So we'll see what's going to be able to try and achieve there. Chang Min-yu can win the tournament. Well, not his fan, but he could. Anyone could win the tournament if you make yourself to the last 16. And Chang seemed like he was very likely to beat Ali Carter as well when he had a 2-0 lead, or approaching a 2-0 lead, I should say. Let's have a very brief look as Maguire gets himself to be underway. Carter got a frame back there, so it's now going to be Chang Min-yu with a 2-1 lead. So Carter doesn't seem like he's going to give in just yet, although the chances for Chang to win the 4 frame are very much going through the roof if you look at the position that he's in. Trump, same thing for him. About to take a 2-1 lead against Si Jiaowei. We now get back to Stephen Maguire getting the red in, but well, he got that one horribly wrong. And once again has been the story of the day. Surely he's not trying to pot the pink. I mean, that is going to be the most outrageous shot there. But there's a reason why it was going to be the most outrageous shot. He wasn't even playing for the red, but I'll tell you what, he certainly made the fans to enjoy that one. No value at all. Selby playing well. I'll tell you what, I am terrified as a Ronnie fan. And I don't want to put it past Maguire, but I would be absolutely, excited to say the least. That's going to be very politely for me to put it, to see O'Sullivan against Selby for the first time that I can remember since 2020, probably, that formidable semi-final. I don't really remember them playing too many times against each other since that point, because, once again, as I tell you what, Maguire there, not playing for a plan, but getting it. A hand of apology goes up. The cue ball is nowhere near to be safe, which means it's exactly where it should be for the ball colours to be available to him. Needs to be careful with his body, not to be getting too close to the Reds. But I'll tell you what, an hour in, and Maguire got his first chance to be in a really good position to try and win the frame. Still a long way to go, only 9 points clear, and still plenty of issues with the position for him to try and navigate his way through, but doesn't look too shabby for now. And Selby against Ronnie would be absolutely brilliant. Textbook TV that would be, for the quarterfinals as well. It's the only shame is that we'll have to lose one of them, as Trump there does take the frame away from CJW. He's now going to have a 2-1 lead, and Selby, he's only going to have a 1-0 lead, but getting a very good chance. I'm a little bit surprised that I suppose I was about to say that Selby's were playing in this, as I call it, unlit area, where you usually put all the qualifiers in. But when you've got O'Sullivan to be playing against Maguire, when you've got Trump to be against CJW, you're going to have to sacrifice someone, and that someone clearly was Mark Selby. Maguire there, having a look to see if he can actually get through to the red towards the right corner. There was a little bang on the table, a little one, don't worry about his cue. Although if he can't see, and I think that the red which he's closer to with the cue ball, I don't really know what he's looking at, because to me that goes that flies in, as Ronnie would say, but maybe down to sight. But I mean, really, I don't really have the best eyes myself, and if I can see that flies through, then he must be doing that as well. Well, listen, I mean, I am still going to stick to it. To me, he went absolutely miles through the gap, but Maguire wasn't able to make that stick, and he caught the red. He caught it on the wrong way, which means that he was going to overcut that one anyway, but just maybe allowing that to get to his head a little bit. Let's see if Ronnie's going to try and cut this red into the corner. He will. It's a really good shot that. They're a killer, those type of shots, because of how thin the cut was and how easy it is just to undercut the red slightly, leave it over the corner pocket, and with 17 points of a lead, Maguire would have had an easy finish to the frame, you would have thought. Instead, it is going to be a race towards the finish line, and let's see who's going to get to the final lap first, because O'Sullivan's still finding himself points behind, and still very consistently and very consecutively doing that thing where he lands the cue ball clearly on purpose at this stage on the lower end of the black. So he clearly feels like he figured a way to pot the black there, but well, having a little smile there with Maguire, but he's missed the black, so I'm not sure what the smile is all about. He felt like he was going to pot the black and he was already approaching the next shot, but yeah, I mean, just a little gesturing there, and I think that's going to be there for the clips, as if to say, I'm done, I'm finished. Yeah, well, he may be, but he's still very much having a 3-0 lead against Maguire. Of course, missing that black into that corner pocket means Maguire's going to have to go for the opposite way. If he makes this red in, the position is going to be there, and he does make that red in towards the corner pocket. Ronnie laughing at himself. He is, but listen, I'm not going to tell him what to do here. Last thing that I want to do, but I just don't think that's the way for you to approach this type of matches. If you're struggling, you're going to have to try and keep your head low, keep your head down, make sure you do the basics right, and just don't really get yourself involved with all this stuff where you're going to find yourself to be, entertaining the crowd, yourself, the fans, etc. Just try and focus on the game a little bit more. But once again, that's purely subjective to my point of view. It means got nothing to do with the reality or what he needs to be doing out there. He just needs to try and do something that works for him. And if that makes him feel better, then absolutely go for it. But I think once again, he's thrown away this frame. despite getting 2 chances. I think Maguire's got no chance of wasting this opportunity away. And once again, what could have been there, because I don't think, if you take 17, well, he might have needed that red on the side cushion, which Maguire won't need, but apart from that, it would have been a very simple finish to the position had the black made it to the corner, but, had if, not really going to happen. And at the intermission, Selby's only managed to complete one of those frames there. He may be able to do that on 2 occasions when Maguire is done with his own break, but we're about to get to the intermission as the first match to do so, with Chomp and Wei, Ali Carter and Chang Min-yu already finishing 3 frames, and Selby and Pang Jung-soo still very much squabbling over frame number 2. Coffee time. He does seem like that. And very, very weird first 4 frames there, because you felt like the best one certainly was a Senchu break. But when you think where he started, how he nearly missed that red into the middle, just about wobbled it in, as Maguire there gets himself lined up for the frame ball, he ain't going to miss that. So he will be down to a frame that he's managed to win. Hasn't scored a point for 2 frames, but now he's got 63 of those with his highest break of the match, of 37 points, and once again just makes it look very quick and easy for himself, because he feels like it's about 3 or 4 minutes of a break, and now he's managing to finish off the frame. Ronnie's got no chance of coming back to the table here then. As let's see, he's not really going to be approaching a century break, but he can always try and entertain the fans a little bit more. But it does seem like the break of 50 plus is still going to be a bit of a myth there. Let's see what he's going to try and do with the reds. Cross double that one. I'll tell you what, it's not a bad effort, but he will make it to the target, as it's now going to be down to Stephen Maguire with a 3-1 of a deficit, as he now manages to get himself a frame on the boards at the 4th time of asking. It is Ronnie O'Sullivan 3, Stephen Maguire 1, and let's have a very brief look again how the other matches are doing. Remember, the winner of this match will play either Pang Jung-soo or Mark Selby. So then, Mark's still leading 22-16, which is disappointing for how good of a position that he had at the start of the second frame. Then you've got Sijia Wei still to be trailing Watchalong 2 frames to 1. And then you've got Ali Carter to be trailing by 2 frames to 1, but also to 44 points to 4 to Chang Min-yu. So it does seem like Chang is about to find himself 60% there when he comes down to winning the match. But an hour in, and Ronnie's still looking nicely in terms of the scoreline. Does he look nicely in terms of trying to win the match and be in a comfortable position for the remainder of the tournament? It's a difficult question now, and I think it's going to be a lot more difficult for you to answer. But for now, it is a break of 50 minutes time, and we'll see you at the end of the intermission. Stay tuned in, as we're about to find out, can Ronnie make his second quarterfinal appearance, third I should say, of 2026. Stay tuned in, as I say, 15 minutes time of a break, and then we'll be back with the main action.
When you want to get off the darkest ground, but gravity pulls you straight down. Earth from a bird's eye view. You should grow feathers and see this too. When you want to get off the darkest ground, but gravity pulls you straight down. When you want to get off the darkest ground, but gravity pulls you straight down. gravity pulls you straight down. Earth from a bird's eye view. You should grow feathers and see this too. When you want to get off the darkest ground, but gravity pulls you straight down. When you want to get off the darkest ground, gravity pulls you straight down. Clear sky. Where am I? Memories die out too hard. We were traveling the mountains just to find the loudest tears. We set down by the fire, knowing we could aim higher, but we didn't know that yet. So if you want something to hold on to, gotta find it first. But here I am, 'cause I've been laying under palm trees, waiting for the summer, knowing there's nowhere to go. 'Cause I am happy on this island, wanna be my farmland. I don't ever want to leave, I'm in a tropic club. I remember the ocean, memories die out too hard. But we were traveling the mountains just to find the loudest tears. We sat down by the fire, knowing we could aim higher, but we didn't know that yet. So if you want something to hold on to, gotta find it first. But here I am, 'cause I've been laying under palm trees, waiting for the summer, knowing there's nowhere to go. 'Cause I am happy on this island, wanna be my farmland. I don't ever want to leave, I'm in a tropic club.
Right then everybody, let's get back into the action as the intermission is now almost over, and a little bit of the weird sequence of 4 frames, you have to say. I think when it comes down to, Maguire had chances in the first frame, he didn't really have any chances in the second or third frames, but ultimately you probably have to put it down to Ronnie playing well for his own standard for the last, for the first 2.5 frames, 3 frames there, but on the 4th one, just one mistake on the black off the spot seemed to prove to be enough there for him to be put out of position and therefore out of the action for the table as well. As now we get the players to be coming back towards the main table. Now, let's see if Maguire can try and improve on that on his own point of the game, because scoring 94 points in total in the first 4 frames is certainly not good enough, especially since he scored around 70 of those in the previous frame as well. So I think it is going to be down to him, as Maguire still needs to try and win. But, we've seen the leads of 3-1 to be disappearing there from Ronnie O'Sullivan's point of view. In a race to 6 against the Ponce Income, he had a 3-1 lead as Ronnie there just seems to inject more and more pace on the cue ball. But as it goes through the cushions, he wears down a little bit. And in the end, he's going to be way above the green. So a good break-off shot there, as Ronnie avoids the disaster that he had in the first frame. And Maguire now seemingly having to just try and play a defensive shot here. Getting the cue ball to be played on towards the black ball cushion, and therefore allowing a chance to O'Sullivan of just setting that cue ball away from the Reds and making sure he'll go right to the very top of the table here. So, well, not quite right to the very top, you have to say, because he's still going to be alongside the top edge of the D. But it could have been worse. Hit the like button, folks. Helps. Thank you very much there, Kevin. And, yeah, feel free to subscribe to the channel. Feel free to do the like on the stream as well. We are going to be back with Zhao against Barry Hawkins. Looking forward to seeing more of Xington, because I think he was probably the player that gets overlooked a little bit so far this season, because I think arguably he had the worst possible draw in the first round of the China Open, and he lost out to Zhang in a very close match. Yes, he was wasteful. Yes, he wasn't playing well, but I think for the players of Zhao Xington's caliber, it is always difficult for you to try and get to the pace with the game very early doors, and by that, of course, I mean playing well in the first round. And then, when he comes down to Shanghai Masters, he lost out to Wilson, but I think the form of Karen Wilson that we've seen in the semi-finals of Shanghai was by far the best that I've seen of him in the last 12 months. As Maguire there just seemingly unable to get through to a dangerous red to be taken away to the corner, but running straight away with the acknowledgement for the shot that Maguire has played. To me, it seemed like there may have been a sign of an error of leaving that red available towards the right corner, but clearly no. So the reds and the blue are going to be getting in the way, but Ronnie got the red way too thin. So now he just needs to hope the cue ball will go to the part of the table where there's not going to be any reds available to him, but that's not going to happen. So I'm not sure why they've given 6 points away to Maguire. I don't think he caught the pink, although he may have done. So anyway, they've given the 6 points to Maguire, so let's trust him with that, but I'm pretty sure he caught the red in, but shouldn't really matter massively. What does, of course, matter is that he gets a really good chance here, Maguire, to try and score some early points here on the board. It's an interesting position, this one as well, because the black is right now seemingly available into both of the pockets, but realistically not available into either one of them. Because to get lined up from the black to be taken into the left corner, you need to be on the right-hand side of it, obviously, and there's a red there. And for the black to be taken into the right corner, you can get on the left part of the black, but the red is going to be covering the left corner pocket. So, and also, Maguire's not really going to be going for an easier shot now. He's going to have to try and do something with the pink, it would seem, because that's the only red that he can go for. And because he wasn't perfectly lined up for the blue, he's just going to have to try and take this red away towards the left corner, and at the same time get a couple of reds out of the way as he plays for the blue, of course. He is going to be trying to improve the position of the pink, but he won't be playing for the pink here. And, well, I mean, he's all right because he's got plenty of angle on the blue, but once again, the fact that he's wrong side of it doesn't really help his case because I suppose it's not really... It doesn't really matter if he's on the right or the left side, but I think he's going to have to be aiming for the red next to the right corner, which means probably the long way around for the shot, but I don't really like the way the cue ball is going because he may well end up to be exactly in between all three of them. So let's see what the verdict is for Maguire, and I think that's exactly what happened. Yeah, I mean, listen, easier said than done there. I think there was nothing which was going to be easy for there, but I think Maguire may just have to feel he needs to go for this cut into the corner. Bit of a suicide mission. Yep, it was. It's a horrible shot for you to be seeing as a fan there, but I think on this occasion, Maguire played this shot reasonably, to be fair, because he did play it into the, the bold colours, and even though he missed that red by a mile, because he missed it by a mile, the red is not really going to end up over the pocket, and O'Sullivan's just going to have to settle for a very awkward safety shot, which I think that will do Maguire nicely, because as I say, I think that was probably the thing that he should have done, to play a good safety shot, but Ronnie just, he got the cue ball into a reasonable position, but once again, there is going to be a chance for Maguire, certainly right now, to be seeing that red to the right corner. Therefore, he's going to go for it. He's going to try and push his way through the reds and colours. God knows where he'll end up. I think he's got no chance of being on the black, so we'll see. He didn't have a chance to be on the black, and he's going to be a little bit too straight on the blue here. Once again, wrong side of it, but I felt like getting that red eliminated to the right corner, even though it was the best, one of the best reds that he had, but it was just such a cover for the pocket there, not just for the black, but for the other reds, that I think he'll be quite happy to get that one out of the way, and he can just try and get himself into an easier couple of shots to be taken. Just needs that cue ball to slow down, but yeah, I think that's reasonable, because he was always going to have the issue of running too far. You're in behind the ping, running too low on the power, and then you're going to be with a very difficult rest shot, so he's going to have to try and go for the one closer to the right side rail for now. I've seen a couple of those to be missed, but not this time. And now, does he have the transition to be taking the pink on? Because if he does, it puts him right in the mix to be a very firm favourite in this particular frame. And as I said, 3-0 can easily turn into 3-2, and then all of a sudden it's Maguire that has got the momentum, and all of a sudden it's Maguire that is shutting down Ronnie here, although some of it was down to luck, but when you're playing and you're spending a lot of time at the table, luck is always going to be on your side, because you're going to have more shots. And I think snooker players are always more... snooker players always have more chance to get lucky rather than get unlucky with a fluke or a lucky little positional clip that you're going to get off the red, because for you to get unlucky, you need to have played that shot with a bit of a margin for an error, and for you not to get that margin that you were playing for, when you get lucky, usually, for me, from my observation, is that you don't really have a brilliant intention of playing for the colour or the red that you ended up on, and that's what makes it lucky, because you weren't trying to really play for it, but you still got it, and that might just allow you to have an easier route towards continuing the break, or might actually save you to be staying at the table completely. But you can always come back to that black in the previous frame, which I still think was, it wasn't the frame winning shot because it was a straightforward shot, but it certainly was the one that lost him the frame from Ronnie's perspective. And 4-0, we've seen that with Zington against Jack Jones, we've seen that with Trump against Yuan Jun. 4-0 doesn't really get a comeback from, but 3-0, not likely, but possible. And you make it 3-1 at the intermission, all of a sudden, there's a complete change in the dynamic of this match. And even though, as I say, I think Maguire was still struggling for form, he wasn't getting the positional play right at the opening part of the frame, but now, 28 points later, it's going to be a very significant break for Maguire, because I'm pretty sure it's his second highest in the match, and he's also managed to score pretty much 50% of the points that he scored in the previous 4 frames during the current frame. And his current visit to the table, I'll tell you what, he seems to be relaxed about it, but I'm not sure. He probably is going to be looking to try and play the reds close to the cue ball here. Because if he was playing for the ones closer to the black ball cushion, I think he might have some bad news for him. Still not an easy one to try and control the cue ball. And well, I mean, you're going to have to be very careful in what you say here, but I do wonder why he had to end up in that place for the first time. Because it sort of seemed like he did a Ronnie there, where he played the shot, which was difficult, and he played on it for no reason. Well, we've seen a bit of a steal from Maguire in the fourth frame. Can we see a bit of a clearance like that from O'Sullivan's point of view? Maguire did a great clearance last match. Brilliant clearance. I mean, 70... Zhijins was unlucky not to get that red in, by the way, because I remember I watched that shot 3 times. I don't really know how that red stayed, but Maguire, fair play to him. And once again, I don't think there's any news. It's exactly the way that he knocked out Zhao Xington in Wuhan Open in a decider, and might have actually been exactly the same stage as well. But yeah, I mean, very impressive there for him. A lot less impressive when it comes down to the shot that he missed on the red. But yeah, I mean, the shots that Ronnie's playing right now, and the reds that he's got ahead of himself and available, it felt like Maguire could have easily played for those reds to try and make it an easier way for him to win the frame. But he's still a long shot for Ronnie. He's still a massive underdog. But when you think about it, you know, it is still manageable, the position. We're going to have to start to be getting to some difficult shots there. He's played the first one very nicely. Never a nice experience for you to have a red so close to the black ball cushion, but not perfectly on it. So then you have to be very careful with the line that you take. Once again, yet another cosmetic change as he makes his way towards a pack of 2 reds, which he's managed to split away from each other. So that's another 16 points that he can score. That's another 16 points that Maguire won't be able to get. So I think at that stage, Stephen will need all 3 of those reds, which is going to be same story for Ronnie there. But, you know, the question is Maguire actually going to come back to the table? Because I still think he will. And I still think he might be coming back to the table as a favourite for it. But, you know, if Ronnie does get 2 of those reds on the black ball cushion, that status will change. But now, once again, look at the pace that he's playing those shots with. I mean, and I'm not going to say it's a bad thing. He's going to have to take that pace away slightly when he gets to the more difficult shots away. As he now decides to go for the red onto the side rail, which I think is a tactical thing. Because now he needs to make sure he's going to be top side of a black to try and either make contact with those reds or just play for them. I think he's a little bit straight, which I think he's just about got the angle though. 4-1 here instead of 3-2. Let's have a look what happens with the black here. Yeah, he's trying to play around it. So it does seem like he'll come down to those 2 reds for him to be taking. The referee there just taking a sting out of the pace a little bit, trying to sort out all the reds that Maguire and Ronnie have managed to pot. 99 points between them. Is he going to be 100? It will be. Massive bounce on the cue ball though. I think he probably was trying to make his way around the black, but I tell you what, the break of 47 points is still a very healthy break that he got there to himself. He puts himself right back in the mix for the frame, and he's got a shot in hand here to try and play a snooker, which, of the red being perfectly on the black ball cushion, if you play this well, you could well be... Well, I mean, I tell you what, I certainly held my breath there, because I said if you play this shot well, I was going to say he could be a frame winner. He nearly potted the cue ball there off the yellow, which I'm a little bit surprised why he didn't try and make it a snooker, because... I know the red is nowhere right now, but for you to hit a red, you're going to have to push it somewhere. And for me, that could have been a chance for Maguire to push it towards the corner. But maybe still going to be the same thing that's going to happen here. And yeah, Maguire just about gets the side cushion rather than the jaw of the middle. But play that red way too good for him to be worried about the cue ball too much. It's on the side cushion. And I think it's just going to be a shot around the table there from Ronnie. I tell you what, it does look good. How good is it going to be? And that's the question. I think he's got more than enough cover It's a brilliant shot that it would seem, because I think the blue, the yellow, the black, and to extend the brown are all covering that red. So it's a 2-cushion escape, surely, from the left side and then from the bulk. But you're going to have to hit that one, otherwise it's a free ball, and it's 90% of a chance that the frame is going to be done and over. It's close, and it is fine there from Maguire. He has got the contact on the red. It was a very thin one, but I think the pace that he played that shot with is a little bit questionable, but that clearly was down to not to leave a free ball away. Could have easily left the red out had he not made contact with it, but he has. And now the question is Ronnie playing this red into the yellow pocket? He wasn't. I'm not sure how good of a shot he's played there, because he tried to get the cue ball to being behind the yellow and brown, but the fact that Maguire is thinking about swerving this one means that he hasn't done a massive problem there to Steven. So let's see what's going to happen, and it's a massive shot there. So, well, Ronnie is there with acknowledgement. I still think it's a little bit weird to see acknowledgement there. I still think he'll go for this red into the right corner, but I don't know. It depends on how much of the red could he actually see there with Steven, but it's a long shot for Ronnie. Could be the frame winner, could be the match winner too. It looks good. It looks very good indeed. And now, 4-1 becomes very much the possibility. What happens to the yellow though? The fact that Ronnie took all the pace away from the blue means he's going to be playing a positional shot on it. So clearly thinks the yellow is going to be available. And then we are going to be looking for a 4-1 lead. And wait to Ronnie O'Sullivan there. Yeah, massive frame there. Still, not over till it's over. He needs the blue, and then he's going to be very much done and dusted there for O'Sullivan. We've seen that before with Joey Long. We've seen that before with Jack Lisowski when it comes down to last season with Ronnie O'Sullivan's performance, where he seems like he's done all the hard work, and then right to the death, he just manages to come back with a bit of a weird mistake. But in the end, it's not going to happen here then. 14 points of a lead with 13 at the table. It's a really good frame this for Ronnie, because even though he didn't have a break of 50 plus there, he's had a break of 47, he's had the break of 26 plus as well, and now he's about to finish off on a high for himself. Maguire seemed like he was able to turn the page. Brand new day for him. Not really, when you can't make that red into the right corner, which was the red that Maguire missed, and that was the start of his problems. And that was only the beginning of his problems in that particular frame. It is a break of 33 points from Ronnie O'Sullivan, and he does get himself to a 4-1 lead. 4-1 here instead of 3-2 would be a missed opportunity for Maguire, since he's finding the groove now. Absolutely agree. That's exactly what happened, so I would expect the next frame to be the last one in the match. There I'm late as always. No, you're perfectly on time, Letitia, for all the action, because, as I say, Ronnie's actually playing well. I know it's a big statement, but I genuinely think he's actually playing well. He's averaging 1 mistake per frame, which I think is more than good enough for now. For instance, Maguire made 2 mistakes in that previous frame, and he was still the favourite for it for 90% of that frame. So, yeah, it was a good opportunity there. Some couple of good safeties as well, but that red was an absolute sitter that he missed into the corner. But once again, I mean, I say Maguire's done a Ronnie there. What I mean by that is that why, when you're 53 points clear, he needed around 3 or 2 more reds there, which he still had available in the open play. Why did he have to go for that red anyway? And then having to play with power, because those pockets have been reasonable, you know, you can't just power your way through. If you hit a jaw, the red is not going to make it to the pocket, and GG's match. Well, we'll see what's going to happen. And he need arrive for the last frame if Ronnie's motivated. Yeah, I mean, he's got 100 points that he scored in one of those frames. 111 balls that he potted. I think he had a century of 109. I may be wrong on that one. Something like, he still had a 75. He still had a 47. So he's playing well. But yeah, he just needs to get himself through towards a bit of a better game before he plays against Selby. Because, whatever you think about him, I think it'll be a very different match if he does make his way towards Mark Selby into the quarterfinals. For now, Pang Jingsu is still trying to say a word or two about it. 35 points at the table, 36 being the advantage there for Pang. As we're about to get the 6th frame underway. They are now about to finish off the third frame. So Selby and Pang still taking their time on their match. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see the way that we're going to see that match. Once again, phantom match, because neither one of the players has been confirmed. But it does seem like that both Ronnie and Selby are going to be able to win their matches, because of how consistent Selby is and because of how much of an advantage O'Sullivan has. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see how Selby approaches that one. I think we know how Ronnie's going to approach it. I think he's going to try and make it, I don't care what happens at the other end of the table. I'm just going to have to try and focus on myself, cue well, hopefully hit the middle of the white a couple of times. And then, yeah, hopefully just going to get himself into a good position there. Needs to be getting a very early gap to Selby, because, you know, some of the mistakes that he's been getting, even though they've been quite rare when it comes down to 1 per frame on average, but, you know, at some stage when you're going to be up against the likes of Trump, Robertson, Zhao Xington and Mark Selby, one mistake in a frame could be more than enough for you to lose 1 or 2 frames. Because you win at 1 frame after a mistake from your opponent, next frame, you may not get any chances at all. And then all of a sudden, it's your break off, you leave a long shot, your opponent manages to pot a red, clears up the table, and all of a sudden, 1 mistake, all of a sudden has cost you 3 frames in a row. That's the standard of play. Standard of play for Maguire, though, is brilliant long shots, horrible positional play, though. In the past, right now, he's played a really good shot on the blue. Got the blue in as well. So he's now 6 points clear. After a really good first shot. I think the shot on the blue was reasonable. He needs to try and sort out the issue with the black as soon as he can. And that's not really going to help him. I mean, he'll help Ronnie, but I don't think he'll help Maguire. Once again, seeing a red to be close towards the corner. 4-1 down. What are your bets? Is it going to be Maguire to go for this black anyway? I think body language-wise suggests yes. I think the reality says he hasn't got a chance to try and pot the black, and I think he's underhit it. Yeah, he's just not enough pace. That's frustration there, but that's just the player that he is, unfortunately, or fortunately, whatever you think about it. He's going to have to play like that for him to make his style of game work, but that was always going to be a long shot. I think he's actually played the black perfectly well in relation to, you know, center of the pocket, but not enough power. In the end, a little bit of fades as well because of the lack of power. And now Ronnie, he's going to get himself a chance. And how good of a chance is it going to be? He is going to be on the black, though, after taking a really good red away into the right corner. So let's see just what Ronnie can try and manage here. Still, I would struggle to find a couple of long shots that we've seen from O'Sullivan. I think the one in the previous frame was really good, but I think when it comes down to maybe more than that, I think I'd struggle. But at the same time, the cue ball control has been very, very good. I think how's the crowd size, please? Yeah, I mean, brilliant, because Ronnie's playing. I haven't seen any other matches live or in full, so I can't really tell you. But I think in Wuhan, you know, it's always one of those tournaments which I think is incredibly underrated. Always look forward to it massively because they've done well in the past. Last season, it was a bit of a drought for the top players, but it was still a really good final in between Gary Wilson and Sal Godon because of how motivated both of them were and how close that final did turn out to be. But as I say, cue ball control perfect. Split of the pack, not so much though, and I think Ronnie's going to have to. He sort of was walking away there, then had a look again as if to say, is there a spare ticket for me? And the answer is no. You're going to have to try and go the long way around, which is going to be taking a red along the side cushion. That was impatience, you feel, because no chance of making that red in with so little preparation. And didn't even get anywhere near it at the end. So still, once again, that mistake per frame is still there for him. Yesterday for Selby, maybe 15%. Well, yeah, Shekoj, yeah, I mean, it is weird though, because you've got a player from China, but I suppose it's down to were Selby and Jego John playing on one of the two main tables, because I'm a little bit surprised the way they've handled this tournament there, Wuhan. I know they did it the same last year, but it doesn't really change it for me. That's Maguire there, opening up the pocket for the black once again. Why would you start a tournament on Sunday and finish it on Saturday? And also, why would you have a third, if not half, of the matches that were played in the first two rounds to be played at 3:30 in Europe? So I understand it is different time in China, but even from China, if they started this match at around 12:30 in China, which means 7 o'clock in the UK, so it's 5.5 hours difference. So that would have been 9 o'clock in the morning for China. Why on earth would you do that though? Because it's going to be horrible when it comes to broadcasting numbers, because realistically, not a lot of people are going to be watching qualified rounds in China without Chinese players. But when it comes down to Europe, how many people are going to be looking forward to getting up 3 o'clock in the morning and watching Ashley Carter against Ronnie O'Sullivan, or watching Judd Trump against Yuan Sijun? Not many, I think. And I think you'll be down to that as well. And I don't know why. It's the first time actually that I haven't lost an internet connection, but it says chat has disconnected there. So I was expecting the stream to go down, but it hasn't, which is good. Alarm may continue, but Maguire hasn't gone down himself for now. He's still fighting. We've had a couple of reckless shots for him in the meantime, but you know, he's now going to find himself 10 points clear and still looking to try and go for the black away and into the left corner, playing that cue ball towards the red. This is when he needs to try and make a little bit of a progress when he comes down to those reds, because he's got 2 shots to try and make things right there. If he doesn't do that now, he doesn't really have a chance of winning the whole thing out there as well, because he's going to have to try and settle for a safety shot. He's got a very important shot to be taking on off a red, trying to play for the black, away and into the left corner. And then if he's done that well, he should get an opportunity of getting himself a chance of, trying to get those reds away from each other and ultimately getting a couple of them to be in the open play. So the red is in, which is first part of the task. Now the question is, what can he actually get himself out of those 5 reds underneath the ping, because they should be spreading out. But once again, the pack split success hasn't been great for Maguire. He needs the black to disappear. And well, what a fluke that is. I can't believe, well, he can't believe it. I can't believe it. What happened there? That was a shot that lost him the match for a second. And then, as he missed the black into the corner, all of a sudden, he's gone all the way around, the black ball cushion, and he dropped into the right corner instead. Well, as I said, could have well been the shot that lost him the match. In the end, was the shot that won him the frame, which is now going to see Maguire to be playing those reds carefully away and into the left and right part of the table. Yeah, I mean, that's certainly going to change the way that this frame is about to unfold, because he's got 3 more shots to take, and then it should be all down to game over and 4-2 to be very much the scoreline. Well, it's not quite what we've seen in the matches against Zhizhins and Vuiza, against Artemi Zhizhins out there, with him featuring in both of the deciders. Managed to win one, lose one as well. But yeah, I mean, very weird one for the black to be missed out onto the left corner in the first place, because I think seemingly Maguire was probably unhappy with how, straight he was on that black in relation to being alongside it. But in the end, didn't really cost him anything. And if anything, he actually worked out a lot better than he could have, because the black dropping in after missing out on it allowed Maguire to be having a very, marginal contact with those reds, which in the end gave him the best possible result. So now then, a break of 63 points, by far his highest in the match. The first 50-plus break as well. And if you ignore the circumstances in which the break has managed to resume, in the end, the bottom line is going to be is that Maguire will take the second frame away from O'Sullivan. And, I think the interesting thing about this match is that the 2 frames that Maguire has won have certainly come at the most unexpected moments for me. Because at the 4th frame, I felt like Maguire was absolutely disappearing. into nowhere, and he wasn't going to get anywhere with that performance as well. But then Ronnie misses out on the black out of nowhere. But once again, I mean, look at that red that he's taken into the side cushion there, Ronnie. I mean, that was the reason why Maguire got a chance in this frame. And if he does that against Selby, he may as well not turn up. And I'm saying, if he is going to be playing up against Selby, which Maguire, by the way, sorting himself out nicely for the positional play, then he may still make a century break out of it as well. If he does, not writing off Maguire yet, despite being 4-1 down. I'll be honest with you, I am writing him down. Writing him off, I should say. But you may have to put him back on the notebook if he does manage to win another frame after this one. I think even 4-3 shouldn't be a massive problem for Ronnie, because he's still got just one chance that he should need. But once again, he had that one chance in this frame. Didn't really work out for him. Maguire there, with a really good pace to this break, about to equal the highest break of the match of 106 points for Ronnie O'Sullivan in the third frame, and making 2 of those breaks of 106 there. Maguire gets himself on the board as well. It is 2 centuries from the 2 players, and it is the number 2 that Maguire will have next to his name as well, as it is Ronnie O'Sullivan 4, Steve Maguire 2. So then, it was a fluke which kept Maguire in the match. Let's see how costly that fluke might prove to be. By the way, Trump out there storming against CJR and having a very dominant performance with breaks of 79, 84, 47, 0, and 68. So he's certainly playing well, apart from maybe if you take 0 out of the equation. And yeah, 2-1 now. He's going to be the lead for Mark Selby. So the third frame was indeed won by Pang Jung-soo, but I think Pang has played a bit of a bad safety shot, and Selby's going to have a good opportunity of taking the red away towards the left corner, and therefore just not really allowing a chance for himself to try and go further after winning that third frame. Once again, 2 hours in, Selby and Pang Jung-soo are only approaching the start of the fourth frame. Been a long time since we've seen Ronnie Mark meeting, can't remember. Yeah, exactly, Letitia, that's what I said. The last one I can remember was 2020, semi-final in the World Championship. It's a match that you can't forget. Selby, though, wastes an opportunity and leaves the chance away to Pang. So that's an interesting one. Selby showing that he's human as well, as Chang Min-yu has got a 4-2 lead against Ali Carter. Juck Trump has got a 4-1 lead against Xi Jiawei while scoring a point right now. And Ronnie O'Sullivan has still got a 4-2 lead against Steve Maguire. So, whilst Selby and Pang are starting off the third frame, we're about to start the 7th frame as well, being 4 frames clear of them, which once again just tells you how much of an interesting battle, let's put it kindly, it's going to be when O'Sullivan and Selby, if they do meet each other in the quarterfinal, do actually have themselves to be cross paths. 22nd February Players' Championship last meetup. Yeah, I'll trust you on that. But I think he probably was down to year 22. Yeah, I get that. That he wasn't this year because, yeah, I mean, it's incredible actually because it's still 4 years. Or pretty much, no, more than 4 years actually. Yeah, it's incredible because we haven't really seen Ronnie to play in the Players' Championship, have we, for 2 years right now. He wasn't, no, was he playing in there last season? I don't think he was. I'm not even sure he qualified for it. So certainly not. Hope Liam Davis wins, as I know his dad. Fair play. And Trump, yeah, I mean, Trump is actually playing really, really well. So we'll see what's going to happen. But, you know, I think both Trump, Xington, and, well, Ronnie's in there with the mix. I don't think you can say that he's playing as well as, you know, the likes of Selby, or especially the 2 giants right now of Trump and Xington. But I think it's also down to him always starting off slowly, but if he gets himself into that quarterfinal and he's going to be up against Selby, if he plays well, there's always an opportunity for him to try and make that one go right. But he can always go left as well, as we've seen with his side spin, to be added unnecessary sometimes. And yeah, that's how you lose control of the cue ball, unfortunately. But even though Maguire had all the control of the cue ball in the previous frame, he's still got to win 3 more in a row. Otherwise, the history will be the same. O'Sullivan will go yet another time unbeaten against Steve Maguire, which he has done in the last 15 years. Which is incredible, actually, when you think about Maguire not really being a player which struggles against the top seeded players. I mean, he's not really a giant killer, but he's not really the one which makes a fortune out of playing the lower ranked players. As Ronnie there gets a unnecessary touch on the paint, which didn't really help his case, but still avoids the cue ball to be meeting the green pocket at that time, which would have been a disaster because a ball in hand would have had a red over the left middle pretty much available to Maguire. So we'll see what's going to happen here then. Can Maguire get through to that red? He could. And just carefully getting that cue ball to be played towards the lower end of the table. I think Ronnie will study the position to see if he's got any one of those reds to be taken in towards the middle, which I think he does. But I can't put into words how difficult it is going to be for him to try and pot that red. Didn't even get close. And pretty much, yeah, I mean, if you're going to play shots like that with, preparation of about a second and a half there, you may as well not play them at all. Because you're never going to get them in unless you play them perfectly well. But you could always find yourself to be getting problems onto your backside there. And he's actually left the red away to Maguire in the opposite middle pocket. And I wouldn't be surprised if Maguire says that he gets a lot closer to it, but even makes that one in. And to be fair, I got that one wrong. Maguire got even further away. This is an interesting one here from Ronnie because can he try and play that cue ball towards the ball cushion and just try and drop a Sean Murphy shot into the left middle, or is he going to be playing for the right middle instead? No, he's actually gone for a safety. Well, I mean, you can applaud that for the IQ's point of view because it's a good shot that he played, but I'm not really convinced that that will give him anything because surely Maguire can just roll up to the bunch here. I mean, he may lose a couple of points, but he ain't going to be stupid to be playing the cue ball to the top end of the table, which is going to be death very much imminent for you when it comes down to the Reds being all over the place and one of them being over the left middle now. So I think it's set in stone that he'll try and do something with those, with a bunch of 10 Reds. The question is, what is he going to be? And I think the answer is going to be very straightforward. Just roll up to them. Make sure you judge the power well. He decided not to be rolling up to them, so interesting choice. Interesting, not necessarily meaning the best one, because he has knowingly left two chances away for Ronnie, one easier than the other, and neither of them is actually easy there, but you know what I mean. The shot into the green pocket I think is easier, and it's a really good shot though, because even though it was easier, it wasn't anywhere near as easy as Ronnie made that one look. That was a really good shot, probably his best one of the match. Maybe a runner-up to the shot that won him the fifth frame. But in the end, after a very sloppy middle point to that previous frame and a very bad mistake on a red onto the side cushion, Maguire got his luck. Ronnie had to work for his own perspective there, as once again, just needing to try and settle into this frame, into this break as well. Yeah, it's not an easy one, but it can become easy in a single shot there. Ronnie decided not to take that dramatic pause and try and play the cue ball into the red straight away, as he now puts himself 16 points clear. Okay, could you describe again that great red from Ronnie, please? So basically, Maguire had the cue ball to be on the black ball cushion, the main bunch of the reds being a triangle. Maguire, surprisingly to me, has played that shot towards the left side of the table, as Ronnie, I think, might have run himself out of position here. Unlucky there. If he has, because he played a really good shot before that. So yeah, a red next to the blue spot into the green pocket. The cue ball being alongside the pink spot, but closer to the left side rail. Really good shot, but he also sort of struck that one a little bit in a weird fashion as well. Because once again, as he was in the previous frame, it's going to be 22 points for Ronnie, which is going to have, which is going to be his advantage here over Maguire, but didn't really stop Maguire from making a century break in the previous frame. So we'll see what's going to happen now. Ronnie there, once again, gets himself 22 points clear. Chance to win the match. Well, he was, but wasn't taken. I don't think you're going to be talking about Maguire because got a long way to go until he's got a chance of winning the match. And he's got a little bit longer to go now since he missed that red, which O'Sullivan was way too kind to leave to him. Once again, safety just not being good enough. He's going to go for this cross double though, in towards the middle. Perfect target found. Easy going to be on the collar. The short and sweet of it is yes. Can he get on the red? Probably not. But doesn't mean that he won't try. He's played this shot beforehand. And I have to say, of all the shots that he's been missing, it's actually been the one that I've consistently seen make into that left middle. It's a really good shot on the brown. He gets the cue ball into a reasonable position, but he is trying to find a way to play an attacking shot, but I think he's going to be smart enough to understand that it's not meant to be today, and he's going to have to try and wait for another opportunity as he plays that cue ball to be onto the ball cushion. But to be fair to him, I don't think he's played as good of a safety as he has right now. Brilliant. Covered the entirety of the right-hand side of the Reds, the left-hand side of the main bunch as well. And you can't really do anything with the Reds to be on the black ball cushion apart from try and roll up to them, which is risky. And Maguire, I think, will find the pink here, or he won't find any colours at all. Or reds. Yeah, I don't think he found any of the balls out there. I mean, yeah, for a second there, I thought Ronnie was having actual look to see, you know, his next shot there to be played, but of course he's just checking to see if there's going to be anything available, which there isn't. Otherwise, Maguire would not have played that type of a shot. Now, 31 points of a lead, so it is getting better than what he was in the previous frame. Well, hopefully at this point, Ronnie doesn't get too impatient and frustrated to finish off the match, although also likely to happen. No, I think it's probably very unlikely to happen. And even though you have to acknowledge that he's trying to be patient, I think he's always expected there. Because if you put him in Maguire's shoes, he will try and get out of here as soon as he can. But because he knows he's a 4-1 ahead, then, yeah, Ronnie there just enjoying his time with the referee. Maguire having a very funny interaction with the referee. I can't hear it, so I'm going to have to watch it on the replay. But certainly something that made Ronnie and Stephen laugh about it. Maybe just, you know, a player from Scotland trying to explain something to a referee from China. Doesn't always go well. Oh, this is a lot more pace. It's a lot more accuracy on the Reds. But as I say, a lot more pace and touch and ball there, which I think probably is going to be the only good thing out of this shot for Ronnie. I think there isn't a chance which would see him go for the red into the corner. And even if there was, I'm pretty sure the cue ball will get stuck in the jungle of the Reds with no chance to get on the black. But he just needs to make sure he keeps the pressure on there, because the bunch of the Reds was there for one shot. It's no longer going to be as, you know, kind and forgiving to any sort of misjudgment there from Maguire. I think Ronnie managed to use that touch and ball really well, so that now Maguire's got exactly the same thing to try and achieve, but of course not having that bunch of the Reds to be having a shield for the cue ball. They're all pretty spread out. There's still a couple of clusters and a couple of Reds next to each other there, but yeah, I think his life is about to get a lot harder than he was in the previous shot. So yeah, I think he was always going to be down to, if you get yourself in the lead, one of those two, they're going to be patient. The other guy will just go for everything. And we've seen that with Maguire to a certain extent. But yeah, to be fair, he had to change the approach completely. And he played that shot really, really well, because he couldn't do anything with a bunch there, he felt. So he had to try and get underneath the black, which on the replay, it was very visible how close he got, on the angle I should say. How close he got towards that red and the black to be caught first. But in the end, once again, I think 31 points of a lead is going to be playing on the mind of Ronnie. Just needs to try and be the player not to make the first silly error here. He just needs to try and either get himself a good chance, force a mistake from Maguire, or, you know, wait for Maguire to make an attacking mistake himself. Because one thing about Steven is that he's not going to be sitting in safeties all day. He'd rather lose, I think, than do that. He's going to have to make sure, as soon as the chance comes into him, he'll absolutely go for it, and therefore, he either makes it, obviously, or he's going to leave a chance away to Ronnie at some stage of this frame, but we'll see which one of those case scenarios is actually going to be there, as Pang Jung-soo, he's battling away against Mark Selby, but seems like he's struggling a little bit to try and get hold of the cue ball, as Trump is about to finish off his match against CJ Wei. 56 points clear with 59 on the table, and Chang Min-yu has actually won his match against Ali Carter. So the first match is done, and we'll now see what's going to happen in this particular equation as well. Maguire there, well, I said the mistake was going to be coming there at some stage. Ronnie was very much pushing that pressure onto Maguire, and now all he needs to do is to finish the job off. It wasn't vintage Ronnie, but I still think he was better than the matches that we've seen of him. And I think there were plenty of improvements. Very few shots that were stupid that were missed, and I think that's always a good thing that he knows where he's at with his game. He knows which shot to take. I think probably the only one which I will say was boundary on stupid was the red that he's taken in the previous frame along the side cushion, which he's taken like a second for preparation there, and sometimes you take a minute preparation for that shot and you still have to be absolutely spot on. GG's, yeah, he should be now, because the position is brilliant for Ronnie, and he's also got a 40 points of the advantage to himself as well. Should if Ronnie wins this match at this visit, it'll be interesting to hear what he'll say in this post-match interview. Yeah, always. Once again, I remember I would only be interested to, when I was supporting, sportsmen from other sports out there, I would only be interested to hear the post-match interview if they lose. So I'd be like, I could watch the post-match interview of the coach of Liverpool if they won, but I wouldn't really be interested in it. But when we lose, I would be like, what went wrong? Please tell me about it. As Ronnie there just about gets the red in. You could say it was down to him trying to get the reds away and into the open play there. May still have enough points for a century break, He will. But let's see if he's actually going to be able to keep the cue ball pointing in the right direction. He is starting to lose touch of it a little bit. Once of the pot success and once now of the positional play, as he now makes it a really good shot and makes those 5 reds to be spread out away from each other perfectly well. So then the next red will be a frame ball and therefore the match ball as well for him. So it is going to be Ronnie O'Sullivan with a scoreline that I predicted, which I take no credit for at all. I think if you asked me 2 frames that Maguire was least likely to win, would have been the frames number 6 and 4, which ended up to be the frames that he actually won there. But anyway, it doesn't matter whether you win by an inch or a mile. Winning is winning, and O'Sullivan will certainly try and enjoy that one now. Whether he enjoyed his game, probably not. But he may be able to rise to the occasion playing against Pang Jung-soo or Mark Selby. I think we know who is going to be the more difficult match for him. Although he doesn't really have a great record against Pang Jung-soo there, as far as I'm aware. He's beat him in the World Championship a season before last. He's lost to him in International Championship, I think. But, yeah, I mean, he's got a lot more history when he comes down to playing matches with Selby, as he now makes another break of 50 plus. It would be very nice to see him finish off with a century break. He's finished like that against Yao Peng Cheng. He's had a break of 106 points earlier in the match, in the frame number 3, and Maguire managed to counter that with a frame number 6 century of exactly same score and exactly the same century break when it comes down to the points. But very quick work there from O'Sullivan, 2 hours worth of work, and now he's going to be booked into the quarterfinal spot, which is nice for him, based off a little bit of prize money, but also, as I say, something that he will never care about for the rest of his life, the ranking points. He's got 50,000 to defend from Saudi, and he's got a couple of those to be back into contention, because remember, he got into quarterfinals of Saudi. He's now going to be through to the quarterfinals of Wuhan, so you bet he's probably going to get around 25 grand for it, which is probably going to be good enough. There's the referee there, certainly getting in the way of Ronnie, but it doesn't seem like he cares about that one bit, as he's now going to be very much looking for a century break, number 2 of the match for himself. Number 3 if you include the century break from Maguire in the previous frame. Back-to-back centuries as well there in the match. Certainly plenty of high-scoring breaks. And O'Sullivan, I think he can be happy with how he's played. I genuinely think so. I think not when you think about his prime, not when you think about him playing well, but when you think about breaks of 70, 106, and now 88 and counting, I think you can really say, well, you know, he wasn't perfect, but he was about as good as he probably could play when it comes down to circumstances. As I say, apart from that previous frame, I don't have any questions. It's all part of the game, but of course, he still needs to find a bit of the edge there. 75, 92, 106, and 54 have been the highest breaks of the match, as he's now about to make it the second century break for himself. And he's going to be the third century break in this match. But it feels a lot more credible when you make a century break in these conditions. Wuhan Open certainly seems like he's not going to be anywhere near as generous. And still, Maguire there just saying that, you know, you've played well today. And Ronnie's saying, having a laugh. Still got a long way to go for me to get anywhere near the level that I want to be at. But I tell you what, he's through to the quarterfinals, and he's now looking to try and challenge Pang Jung-soo or Mark Selby as still one of the players that can make it all the way to the top. He's certainly done here before, when I think he got into the semis of Wuhan Open in 2023. We'll see if that's going to be the reality, if he is to beat the likes of Pang Jung-soo or Mark Selby, with Selby now getting himself a lead of 3 frames to 1. Trump has already managed to finish the work off Si Jiahui there, although hasn't quite done that yet. He's still 56 points clear, 59 on the table, but I think even in this frame, Si Jiahui has got absolutely no chance of trying to win this one. GG's Ronnie, but he'll definitely have more work to do there for the next match. Either Pang or Selby. Congrats on it today. Play well. Yeah, I think he has. He can be very happy with his scoring. 562 points in 7 frames is certainly a good result for any match, any sort of opponent, or you know, any stage of a tournament as well. So I think he's got positive to take. Whether he will do that or he's going to focus on the negatives is entirely up to him. But the bottom line is, Ronnie O'Sullivan is through towards the quarterfinals just for the 3rd time in 2026. We'll see if he's going to be able to try and make it in towards the 2nd semi-final of the calendar year. And he's going to have to try and do that against Pang Jung-soo or Mark Selby. So then, once again, thank you for everyone watching. Stay tuned in for Barry Hawkins against Zhao Xington as the 2025 World Champ can start to really get his form back on track there. Hasn't still won a tournament in China, in Wuhan, Shanghai, or the likes of China Open as well. He's going to try and do that at the Wuhan Open after winning the Players' Championship, the Tour Championship, and the World Grand Prix in Hong Kong as well. Stay tuned in there for more action as we get the Wuhan Open properly underway, and more matches still to come as top seeds seem like they're here to stay for now. Once again, thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you soon for Zhao Xington against Barry Hawkins. Thanks for watching once again.